Hi, I'm Joshua Martin, and in this month's Property Intel Power Up, we're going to be taking a look at reference maps. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about reference maps and how they differ from projects within Property Intel. So projects are going to be where you're doing most of your work within Property Intel. This is doing takeoffs for maintenance work, for construction projects where you're using PDF backgrounds, aerial backgrounds, or even doing blank canvases where you may be doing a design from scratch within Property Intel. That's where our regular editor view you're going to be in, where you're drawing shapes, doing designs, getting quantities at the end of the day that you're going to use to estimate a project so that you can price it to win that work. Reference maps, however, are maps. They're shareable maps for easy communication with customers or internal teams. And so with a reference map, what you're doing is you're placing pins on the map to highlight areas of interest on the property, such as enhancement ideas or issues. And these pins have configurable details and the ability to add attachments to further communicate exactly what's going to be accomplished for that area of the property. And so, like I said, reference maps are going to live on your properties because that's where you're doing the bulk of the work. And so to get to them, you're going to go to your properties area within Property Intel, and then you can search for the particular property that you want to be working on. In this case, I'm going to do this one. And so you can see here exactly what I'm talking about. You have your project list, which these are all your projects, your takeoffs, your designs that you've done for this particular property. And then you have your reference maps area. So to create a new reference map, I'm going to click my reference maps tab. I can hop into any that I've done before, but in this case, we're going to show you how you would do them from scratch. And so you're going to click new map. You're going to want to name the map. And then if you need to drag around the center point, we automatically pull in the address based off of the address you have for the property in the system. But if you need to change that or move that around where you want the default to be, you can just left click and drag and move that around. When you're happy, just simply click create. And you can see here that I'm in my editor view for reference maps. So there's some commonalities that we have with projects, and then we have the left and right side panel, and then we have aerial imagery. The differences are reference maps do not use a credit because we're just using Google Earth imagery for it because they're just a way to reference things about the property. So they don't require credits, so you don't have any of those map controls that you might normally that you do have on projects. The other commonality that we have here is over on the right is the details panel. This is where you're doing things like you can see the name, you can edit the name here, see the address, the date you created it. You can give a summary for this map. So if you want to call out specific descriptions about what's going on here, you can add that in here. And we've got some good formatting for the text that you have. You control your pin settings. So if you want numbered pins, this is where you would turn that on so that you can have numbered pins for that particular area. You can also do default colors. So if you want all the pins to come in as a certain color initially, this is where you control that. Other map controls such as the boundaries and the street names, that's all turned on here. So let's look at adding a pin to kind of give you an idea of how you would set up a reference map. To start adding your first pin, over here on the top left, you're going to click the plus arrow. Now you can just add pins directly, so blank pins where you want to call out a specific thing, or you can do groups so that you can better organize your pins. So if you want to add a group, you would click this add group. It's just like the drawing view. It's a folder that you can then place pins in. You can drag and drop them into there to have better organization, especially if you have a lot of pins on the property. And then you can use an existing group. And so in this case, I'm going to use my issues that I've used before, and I'm going to start placing pins within it. So I've added the folder in here, and then when there's no pin in a particular folder in a group, we give you a quick way to add that first pin. So to add my first pin, I'm going to click add pin. I may zoom in a little bit here, click add first pin, and then the next thing to do is just to click on the map where you want to add that particular pin. So I've placed this here on the map. You can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at here with this particular pin. Now that it's placed, I can change the name. And so I want to update this into broken valve box. You can give it a value. And so if this particular was a this particular pin was a repair that you needed to charge the customer for, or to send a estimate to, then you can do that here. So I can add a value. You can add tags. Again, you can control the color of the pin at the individual pin level. So if you had a color system that you wanted it to coordinate with, you can do that. The same kind of type thing where you can add a description with the different text formatting issues. On pins, you can create connections. And so a connection is a connection to a project or a proposal within PropertyIntel. So these would be existing projects that you have that you've already done a takeoff or a measurement for, or maybe a design. And so you want to create a connection from this pin to that project, so the customer or whoever is viewing this has a seamless way to move back and forth to see the pin and maybe the share view of the project that you've done. But also you can create a new project. And so you can see here, like if I just search, there's not a project here by this name. So if this were an issue that I needed to follow up on and do a design for, or a takeoff or a measurement, I can go ahead within here, create that connection. So I have that project to follow back up on to be able to do the design or takeoff for. So that's what connections are. You can also add attachments to pins. And so attachments are images, PDFs, that sort of things. You can do like images of the design. You can do the picture that you took on site. Or if you've already done a proposal, you can add that in here as well. So I'm going to click add attachment. Again, you can just kind of browse your file. You're going to choose a particular photo that you might have. If it's your phone, it's going to pull directly from it. And then that attachment is going to live here directly on that pin to where the customer can easily click and view that. And so once you've created this reference map, the last thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to share this out. And so you can see there's a share tab on the right to where you can create that publicly viewable read-only share link for your customer. You can give them the URL. And now they have a link to this map that's dynamic. And so if you add more pins, they're going to show up here and they can quickly view it and see it. And you have an easy, seamless way to communicate back and forth to your customer. Thanks for listening today and viewing. We're going to be diving more into reference maps in our future months coming up here in our Power Ups. And so be tuning in for that. But this gives you just a general overview. And then coming up, we'll be looking at some more of those specific workflows of how you might use a reference maps to sell more enhancements or to do property inspections on particular properties.